مرحبا أهلا وسهلا مرحبا بكم اليوم سندرس الدرس الرابع المفردات. So we're going to go through the vocab words from lesson 4. We are now nearing the midpoint of the semester. We have 7 chapters and we're pretty much at the middle point now. So let's go ahead and jump in. في الدرس الرابع in chapter 4 we're going to be talking about a bunch of new verbs, present tense verbs, فعل مضارع. We're going to be talking about foods. We're going to be talking about school, grade school. So let's just jump right in. If you have your books, نحن الآن في صفحة 64, page 64 and 65. And what you'll notice is this PowerPoint that I put together, I actually reorganized the list as I do in all the PowerPoints so that words that have similar meanings or are in categories, I just categorize them together so they're a little bit easier to go through and memorize because it kind of is random in the list there. Okay, so let's see. أول كلمة أول أول meaning first. أول meaning first. Okay. نحن طلاب في الصف الأول. It can be used in two different ways here. Let me see if I put both of them. No, I didn't. Two ways that you can use أول. The first is you can use it as a صفة, an adjective. So here we're saying الصف الأول, meaning the first class. And notice how both of them have ألف لام. So that's one way you can use it. نحن طلاب في الصف الأول باللغة العربية. صح? We're in the first level or the first class. You could also use it as what we call a superlative, which is the most of something. Okay? And if you use it in that form, all you have to do is put the word أول and the noun right after it. So if I want to say هو أول طالب, the first student. Okay? أول صف, the first class. So both of those structures have the same exact meaning. It's just you can choose whichever way that you want to do. Okay? أول. Okay. قبل. قبل يعني before. And it says in your book that we have قبل على الاسم with a noun. So we're using قبل right now with a noun. We'll come back to verbs in a couple of chapters. But if you want to use it with a noun, okay, you just put the noun right after the word قبل, and it usually has ألف لام. ماذا تعمل مثلا ماذا تعمل قبل الصف ماذا تعمل قبل الصف قبل الصف قبل الصف أنا آكل I eat قبل الصف أنا أكتب الواجب قبل الصف أنا أشرب القهوة. Okay? قبل الصف, before class. So what do you do? ماذا تعمل? What do you do before class? أدرس الكلمات قبل الصف. Okay? أدرس الكلمات. So I study the words before class. قبل. So what I want you to do as you're listening to this, as you do with all of these vocab lessons, pause it for each word. Try to come up with a sentence. Say a sentence. Write down a sentence. Practice using the word and then move on to the next one. Okay. فرد. فرد is an individual. جمع أفراد. You'll now notice, now that we have done الجمع, we've done the plural. So now when you see nouns, you're always going to see a noun, and then you'll see the plural, جيم, for جمع. Alhamdulillah. You'll see the جيم for جمع, and then you'll see the plural that will be right after it. فرد, أفراد. فرد, أفراد. Okay. لا أعرف أعرف no. لا أعرف, I don't know. لا أعرف أفراد عائلة والدي. أفراد عائلة والدي. This is an example of إضافة that we covered in الدرس الثالث, chapter 3. أفراد, the members or the individuals of عائلة, family, of والدي, my dad. So my dad's family members. So أفراد and فرد can also be used as member. Okay, so individual or member. لا أعرف أفراد عائلة والدي. I don't know members of my dad's family. هم لا يسكنون في أمريكا. Okay, لأنهم لا يسكنون في أمريكا. So they don't live in the United States. Okay? So أفراد عائلة والدي. So in this case, you're using it as an إضافة. كل. كل has two different meanings. Your book only lists one, so I'm going to give you both of them. كل can mean all and it can mean every. It just depends on the word after it. When we have the word كل and the word after it is الجمع, it's a plural noun. Then it means all of the whatever those plural things are. So when we say كل الطلاب, all of the students. Notice how it's plural. كل الطلاب, كل الأساتذة, all of the teachers. كل الصفوف, all of the classes. Okay? But if you use كل and you use it with مفرد, a singular word, then it becomes every one of those things. So if I say كل يوم, كل يوم meaning every day. Okay? So كل الطالب, كل طالب, every student. So when you use it with a singular, it's going to mean each and every. If you use it with the plural, I mean all, which makes sense. Okay, so now let's move on to the next topic, which is al-akal. Al-akal is food. It can also mean eating. Al-akal. So first things first, we got to learn the verb. يأكل. يأكل. ما معنى يأكل؟ يأكل. الولد في هذه الصورة هو يأكل. What's he doing? He's eating. Okay? الولد يأكل. الطالب يأكل في الكافيتيريا. What does cafeteria sound like? Cafeteria. ماذا تأكل أنت؟ ماذا تأكل في الصباح؟ ماذا تأكلين أنت في الصباح؟ أنا آكل التوت والموز. ماذا أيضا؟ البيض, an egg. آكل cereal. ماذا تأكل؟ ماذا تأكل في الصباح? Okay, well now we have the verb, so we have to look at how do we conjugate it. So you're going to pause, you're going to write this chart out. You're going to write this chart out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my iPad. See if my screen sharing is on. And we're going to write down the conjugations together. Remember, conjugations just means how do you change the verb for the person who's talking. Okay? Okay. Okay. هو يأكل. هو يأكل. Here's your original verb. Anytime you're given a verb, it's always given to you in the هو form. That's the default. هي, if she's doing the verb, we already know. We change it to a ta. هو يأكل, هي تأكل. Okay. والدي يأكل, والدتي تأكل. Okay. أحمد يأكل, فاطمة تأكل. So ya for the masculine, ta for the feminine. Okay. When you want to make it plural, what do? All we do is we take this form right here and we add waw noon. So we have يأكل, we add waw noon. يأكلون. هم يأكلون. الطلاب يأكلون في الكافيتيريا. Okay. يأكلون. Okay. Let's work our way. Let's go to the top. أنا. أنا. أنا always starts with ألف همزة. So if we look at this verb, يأكل, and we change this letter to a ألف همزة, what happens? We have ألف همزة and we have another ألف همزة. There's two. When you have two hamzas next to each other, instead of saying kul, instead of saying that, when you have two hamzas, you just change it to alif madda, just like that. Two hamzas next to each other just becomes alif madda. So we say ana آكل. أنا آكل cereal. أنا آكل التوت. أنا آكل الدجاج. آكل. نحن. Go back to the original. Remember you have يأكل. We just take this ya and change it to a noon. Remember in your verbs, everything else stays the same. The harakat stay the same. All the other letters stay the same. We're just changing the prefix. نحن نأكل. أنت, change it to a ta. أنت تأكل. أنت تأكل. And notice in dialect, a lot of times, many dialects don't pronounce the hamza, they say تأكل. Okay? But in Fusha, we're going to pronounce the hamza. Okay? أنت تأكل. أنت meaning you. If I'm talking to you and you're a woman, what do we add to the end of this? It's the same verb, but we add ya noon. أنتِ تأكلين. أنتِ تأكلين. If you're talking to me, if you want to ask me a question, you would say ماذا تأكلين? يا أستاذة ماذا تأكلين? Why? Because I'm a woman. أنتِ. أنتم. أنتم, we're going to take the same form here as أنت. We're going to add واو نون. تأكلون. Same thing that we did here with يأكل became يأكلون for home. أنت تأكل. أنتم تأكلون. You just add واو نون. And we don't have a gender neutral pronoun, so if you want to use a gender neutral pronoun, you would just use these. You'd use the plural, just like in English. So you're going to pause and make sure that you have this chart. We're going to be doing a lot more verbs, and there's another PowerPoint, another video lesson in which I'm going to be going over all the verbs specifically. But just wanted to go over this at least with the food. Okay. Okay. So here we have it. You can check your answers. So what are the types of things that we can eat? ماذا نأكل؟ خضار. خضار. ما معنى خضار؟ خضار. Vegetables. Notice, خضار comes from a color. What's the color? أخضر. The color green. أخضر is green. خضار is vegetables. So things that are green generally, obviously not all the vegetables are green, but notice the relationships between the words. هل تحب الخضار؟ هل تحبين الخضار؟ هل تأكل الخضار كل يوم؟ هل تأكلين الخضار كل يوم? You're going to answer the question for yourself. هل تأكلين, if I'm talking to you and you're a woman. تأكلين, if you're a man. تأكل, هل تأكل الخضار كل يوم. ما معنى كل يوم? Every day. أنا آكل الخضار كل يوم. أنا أحب الخضار. الخضار. Okay. حلويات أو حلو. حلويات. Sweets. Sweets. هل تحب الحلويات؟ هل تحبين الحلويات؟ هل تأكل أو تأكلين الحلويات كل يوم؟ زوجي يأكل الحلويات كل يوم في المساء. كل يوم. كل مساء. الحلويات. Sweets. سلطة. ما معنى السلطة؟ سلطة should be easy. Sounds the same. سلطة. هل تأكل السلطة؟ هل تأكلين السلطة? Notice these questions we're asking. Do you eat this? Or do you like this? اسألوا زملائكم. You're going to ask the question to somebody. Ask your peers. If we were in a physical class together, we would ask each other in class. So if you're not in a physical class with each other, ask yourself. If you have someone you can talk to and practice with, ask them. هل تأكل السلطة؟ هل تأكلين السلطة؟ من يأكل السلطة كل يوم؟ Who eats salad كل يوم؟ أنا. Most of the days. Okay, السمك. سمك. سمك يعني fish. هل تأكل السمك؟ هل تأكلين السمك؟ هل تحب السمك أو الدجاج؟ السمك أو الدجاج؟ ما هو أحسن? Which one's better? السمك أو الدجاج؟ أنا أحب السمك كثيرا والله. أوكي شوربة. شوربة. هل تشرب الشوربة؟ نحن نشرب الشوربة. You drink it, right? You drink soup. You don't eat the soup, you drink the soup. هل تشرب الشوربة؟ هل تشربين الشوربة؟ Do you drink soup? عندك شوربة الخضار? So what kind of شوربة is this? شوربة الخضار. Soup of what? Vegetables. So vegetable soup. That's an example of الإضافة. Remember we did إضافة, and in the lesson for إضافة we said that it's an of statement, it's possession, and it can also be used for compound words, like when we say car key, right? So here, vegetable soup. It's a soup of vegetable, right? But it's a compound word in English. عندك شوربة الخضار. Do you have vegetable soup? Okay. هل تحب أن تشرب شوربة الخضار؟ فواكه. أنا أحب الفواكه. فواكه. البرتقال. توت. Look at this, all these فواكه. Okay. الأولاد يحبون الفواكه. صح؟ الأولاد يحبون الفواكه. والأولاد يحبون الحلويات. Okay. أيضا. طيب هل تأكلين الفواكه؟ كل يوم؟ متى يعني when؟ أنا آكل الفواكه في الصباح دائما. أنا آكل الفواكه في الصباح. وأنت متى تأكل الفواكه؟ متى تأكلين الفواكه؟ متى meaning when. So when do you have fruits? When do you eat fruits? لحم. لحم لحم لحم. هل تأكل اللحم؟ meat. Those are your red meats. هل تأكلين اللحم؟ من لا يأكل اللحم. Who doesn't eat meat? من لا يأكل اللحم. النباتي أو النباتية if you make it feminine. النباتي, someone who doesn't have meat. Someone who just has fruits and vegetables and grains. Okay? So vegetarian. النباتي. So we have اللحم, الدجاج, so meat, chicken, السمك, fish, they're your proteins. We have الخضار, الفواكه. We have الشوربة, soup. What else do we do? الحلويات. So all these different food groups. Okay. أين نأكل? مطعم. مطعم is an example of a place you eat, which is a restaurant. مطعم جمع مطاعم. So notice the gene here again for جمع, for plural. So what kind of plural is this? مطعم, مطاعم. المذكر, المؤنث, أو التكسير؟ التكسير. ممتاز. مطاعم جمع تكسير. في أي مطعم تأكل؟ في أي مطعم تأكلين؟ أي مطعم. So think of it. What restaurant do you like? What restaurant do you eat in? مطعم حميدوس. مطعم صبا. مطعم أم كانتينا. مطعم ماذا؟ Pick a place. مطعم جيمي جونز. في هذه الأيام الناس لا يأكلون في المطاعم. صح؟ في هذه الأيام الناس لا يأكلون في المطاعم. So these days people don't eat in restaurants, right? Because we're in pandemic season. If you're watching this post-pandemic, hopefully one day. But right now we're in pandemic season, right? الناس لا يأكلون. People don't eat in the restaurants. Usually. Okay, so that was الأكل. Now we're going to move on. We're going to talk about المدرسة. School. مدرسة جمع مدارس. Madrasa, madaris. Notice what kind of plural is it? جمع المذكر, المؤنث, أو التكسير. We didn't add waw noon, we didn't add un to the end, we didn't add alif ta'at. So it is taksir. Madrasa, school, madaris, schools. Ibtida'i. Ibtida'i. Ibtidaiya, the feminine. Ibtidaiya. Ibtida'i means elementary. Beginner or elementary. أخي يدرس في المدرسة الابتدائية. There's a typo here. Let's just fix that while we're here. المدرسة الابتدائية. أخي يدرس في المدرسة الابتدائية. So notice here, al-madrasa means school and elementary is an adjective. So that's why both of them have alif lam, both of them have ta marbuta, meaning elementary school. Okay. What kind of school? Elementary school. You're describing the school. أخي يدرس في المدرسة الابتدائية. Okay. زميل جمع زملاء. So these are your classmates. زميل, classmate, masculine. جمع زملاء. Zumala are classmates. Notice it's a jamat taksir, broken plural. Zumala can mean classmates that are boys and girls, men and women, or just boys, just men. But if your classmates are just women, then we say zamila, a female classmate. And then when we change this as jamat mu'annath, so we just change this ta marbuta to alif ta, zamilat. Can I move my face? There we go. زميلات زميلة زميلات زميل زملاء زميلة زميلات. Okay, so the masculine is taksir and the feminine takes alif ta. Okay. أسماء زملائي. أسماء زملائي, the names of my friends. أسماء زملائي. هي سارة وفاطمة وأحمد. So you're going to say it to yourself. Give yourself a sentence. The names of my classmates are, and then list the names. تكلم مع زميلك. This is if I tell you in class. تكلم مع زميلك. Talk to your partner. Talk to the person next to you. Okay? Work together. أعرف زميلتي سارة. I know my classmate سارة. أعرف زميلتي سارة من صف التاريخ. صف التاريخ. أي صف؟ التاريخ. ما معنى التاريخ? We did this in the last chapter. التاريخ يعني history. Notice another إضافة, the class of history, history class. صف التاريخ. Okay, here's another one. صديق أصدقاء. صديق جمع أصدقاء, meaning friend. صديق is the type of friend that you trust. Comes from صدق, which is trustworthiness. Trustworthiness. So it's a friend that you trust. It's closer than Zamil. Zamil is just, a classmate, a peer. But صديق, you trust them, they're your friend. صديق أصدقاء, that's the masculine. It takes the taksir pattern. But the feminine, صديقة, ta مربوطة, just takes the alif ta, جمع مؤنث. صديقات. So if your friends are just women. أصدقاء are going to be friends that are mixed. صديقات, friends that are just women. Okay. هو صديقي. هو صديقي. He's my friend. أذهب إلى المطعم. أذهب إلى المطعم. ما معنى أذهب؟ يعني روح. I go. Okay. أذهب إلى المطعم. أين أذهب؟ إلى المطعم. To the مطعم, to the restaurant. مع من؟ مع أصدقائي. مع أصدقائي. Okay. أذهب إلى المطعم مع أصدقائي. I think this should have been. الطفولة. الطفولة. الطفولة يعني childhood. أعرف صديقي أحمد. أعرف صديقي أحمد. I know my friend Ahmad من طفولتي, from my childhood. We could say من طفولتنا, from our childhood. We could say من الطفولة with ألف لام, meaning just from childhood. طفولة, childhood. Okay, now we're going to get into verbs. There are 9 verbs. Okay, there's a lot of verbs in this chapter that are introduced. In this PowerPoint, I'm only going over the meanings. There's another PowerPoint, another video in which I'm going to go over تصريف الأفعال, the conjugations for all these verbs. Okay, so there'll be verb charts and everything for your practice, but for this right now, it's just to introduce to you what the verbs are, and then in the following video, you'll practice the conjugations. Okay. أسافر إلى. أسافر إلى. I travel to, or I'm traveling to. When we look at present tense verbs, all of these verbs that we're doing, we call it فعل المضارع. المضارع is present tense. It's happening في الحاضر, right now. Okay? Now, the way that you can translate these is either the infinite form, right? Or you could just say the progressive, or it's happening right now. Okay? So we can say I travel, meaning I travel, or I'm traveling, that it's ongoing. Okay? They both, in Arabic, it has the same meaning. So whichever one you want to use. It just depends on context. أنا أسافر إلى المكسيك. I travel, or I'm traveling to Mexico. أنا أسافر إلى المكسيك. أسافر will always come with the word إلى, meaning to, because you're always traveling to somewhere. Okay? Now, another word that we get in this chapter is السفر. And السفر means traveling. But star it in your notes and write that it is a noun. أسافر إلى is a verb, فعل. It's an action. And you know this because it has this alif hamza in the beginning. Whenever you have I do something, there's an alif hamza, right? When you do the verb chart, you'll see nusafir with a noon if it's we're traveling and so forth. But when you say as-safar with an alif lam, as-safar, this is just the act of traveling. So if I want to say أنا أحب, I love traveling, the idea of traveling or traveling in general. You're not saying I'm traveling, he's traveling, she's traveling. You're not talking about anyone specifically traveling. You're just saying that I like the general idea of traveling. That's an ing noun. We call it a gerund in English, right? But in the next chapter, we'll talk about this. It's called masdar. But we're just being introduced to a word that follows that pattern. So it just means traveling. And the way that you know it's a noun is because it has alif lam. Okay? A verb can never take alif lam. Alif lam is a definite article. Definite articles are only attached to nouns. So we have as-safar, traveling. أنا أحب السفر. So if I want to say I like traveling or he likes traveling, we're going to use the word safar. But if you're talking about a person who specifically is traveling, هو يسافر, he's traveling, then you're going to use the verb. Okay, that's the difference. Okay. أتذكر. أتذكر, I remember. أتذكر comes from ذكر, which is remembrance. أتذكر, I remember. أتذكر أصدقائي من طفولتي. أتذكر أصدقائي من طفولتي. So I put all bunch of new words here. I remember أصدقائي, my friends, من طفولتي, from my childhood. Notice طفولة, the word الطفولة, if you want to make it mine, drop the alif lam. We added a ya here to make it mine. You don't say my childhood, right? My childhood, you don't need the word the on it, so we drop the alif lam. ماذا تتذكر أنت؟ ماذا تتذكر من طفولتك؟ ماذا تتذكرين من طفولتك؟ So what do you remember from your childhood? أتذكر أصدقائي. أتذكر بيت العائلة. أتذكر المدرسة الابتدائية. ماذا تتذكر؟ ماذا تتذكرون أنتم? What do you guys remember? لا أتذكر. If you put لا in front of a verb, means I don't. لا أتذكر, I don't remember. لا أتذكر اسمك. كيف لا أتذكر اسمك? I don't remember your name. لا أتذكر. Okay. يستمع إلى. يستمع إلى. he listens to or is listening to. Okay. يستمع إلى. Notice here, this verb starts with a ya, that's why it's he. Versus the past two, we had alif hamza, so it was I. يستمع إلى. في الصباح يستمع أبي إلى الأخبار. في الصباح يستمع أبي. Notice you can put your verb before the doer, or you can put the doer, the subject, before, right? You can switch the two. So ماذا يستمع أبي? ماذا يستمع أبي? What does my dad listen to? What does my dad listen to? إلى الأخبار. وأخي يستمع إلى الموسيقى. Okay. أخي يستمع إلى الموسيقى. So my dad listens to news, my brother listens to music. وأنتم. وأنتم. What do you listen to? We'd say أنا أستمع إلى. What do you listen to? يقرأ. يقرأ. He reads or is reading. ماذا يقرأ الطالب? ماذا يقرأ الطالب? أي كتاب? Which book? هو يقرأ كتاب اللغة العربية. يقرأ كتاب اللغة العربية. Just smack my nose. يقرأ. يكتب. يكتب, to write. He writes or is writing. الطالب يكتب الكلمات الجديدة. الطالب يكتب الكلمات الجديدة. He's writing the new words. لا أتذكر كيف أكتب الكلمة. لا أتذكر كيف أكتب الكلمة. I don't remember how. So we're using كيف here in the middle of the word. I don't remember how I write the word. How meaning how to write the word. أكتب رسالة لحبيبي على فيسبوك. أكتب رسالة لحبيبي على فيسبوك. So I write a letter. I'm writing a letter to my darling, my loved one on Facebook. أحفظ. أحفظ means memorizing. I'm memorizing. أحفظ كل الكلمات الجديدة. I memorize or I'm memorizing all the vocab words, which inshallah I hope that you are doing. أحفظ. Okay, so now the last thing we want to look at is past tense. Okay. We have talked about past tense just briefly, but what I'm going to look at right now is a word called can. Okay. But before we get to that, let's just look at the days of the week, because we have not the days of the week, but just one word that we haven't done yet. أمس. أمس. امبارح. أمس is yesterday. So we have أمس, yesterday. اليوم, today. وغدا, we did this. غدا is tomorrow. كيف تأكل بيتزا؟ أمس واليوم أيضا. How do you eat pizza? أمس واليوم, yesterday and today. So أمس, اليوم, الغدا. So now we have أمس. So let's look at the past tense. كان. كان is a word that means he was or he used to. It puts a present tense sentence in the past. Okay, so here we have an example. هو في البيت. He is in class. If I want to say he was in class, we say كان في البيت. Or if you want to say هو كان في البيت, that's fine too. So what كان does is it puts it in the past. الولد في الصف. He's in class. So the boy is in class. But if I want to take that and I want to now put that into the past, we're going to use the word كان. كان الولد في الصف. The boy was in class. Or if you want to say الولد كان في الصف. Right? Remember your subject, the word that the person who's doing the action, you can put that first or you can put that after the verb. Okay? So الولد كان في الصف. Okay. كنت. It's the same exact verb. It's kind of like we treat it like a pseudo verb. And when we change it, when we conjugate it for أنا, it becomes كنت. كنت means I was. أنا في البيت. I'm at home. If I want to say I was at home, I'm going to use كنت. كنت في البيت. And kuntu, because it means I was, it implies that I'm the one who was. You don't have to say أنا كنت في البيت. You could if you want to, it just gives extra emphasis. But you can just leave it as كنت في البيت. أنا تعبانة, I'm tired. كنت تعبانة, I was tired. Okay, so notice these are taking nominal sentences and you're simply putting it into the past tense. So let's look at how we conjugate كان. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up here. I have the chart right in front of you that you can look at. Okay. Conjugations for kana. So we'll start with huwa and hiya because those ones are easiest. We put it in blue. Huwa kan. Or you can pronounce it with fatha there. Huwa kan. He was. Hiya kanat. So for this, think of this as the past tense. It's going to take a suffix. In present tense, everything that we've done has taken a prefix. In past tense, the verb only takes a suffix. So the suffix is a ta with a sukun. If you took 130 with me, you know this already because we did this. We've done huwa, hiya in past tense. So kana, kanat. For the plural, if I want to say hum, they were. Kanu. The ending is going to be a waw and a silent alif. Okay, a silent alif. You don't actually pronounce the alif. It's just there as a silent alif. Okay. Hum kanu, meaning they were. Hum kanu. Now, for ana, and for all the rest of them, when you take this verb and you have kan, okay, and for present tense, not for present tense, sorry, for past tense, when I'm saying ana, I have to add a tu to the end, and the letter before it takes a sukun. If I were to put a sukun here and put tu, that would mean I'm pronouncing an alif and then stopping on the nun. Kan, tu. This is what we call iltiqa as-sakinain, two sukuns, where we're having a long vowel and we're stopping on a letter. It just sounds awkward. When that happens, all we do is we drop that long vowel and we simply put the next letter there. Now you don't have to know all of this. I'm just letting you know this, so hopefully it helps you in terms of memorizing it. So because that happens for all of first person and second person, we end up dropping the alif from kana, and all of them become kun. And that dhamma is there because in present tense the verb kana becomes yakun, which has a waw, so it's just carries on as a dhamma in past tense. So kuntu, all of those details, don't worry about that. You'll probably learn more details of that morphology in 132. But for now, to memorize, ana kuntu. The ending is this ta with the dhamma. That ta with the dhamma represents ana, that I'm the one who was. I was, kuntu. For nahnu, it's going to be kunna. So you have this right here, kun, and we're adding nun alif. Because there's two nuns, we simply put a shadda there. Kunna, we were. Anta, anti, antum, super easy because they rhyme. Anta, kunta. Anti, kunti. Antum, kuntum. So y'all were. You were masculine. You feminine were. So if I said أين كنتِ, where were you? أين كنتِ يا سارة? أين كنت يا أحمد? أين كنتم يا طلاب? Okay. So you were. So this is going to be the past tense. So you can pause and make sure that you write these all down. And we want to do one little note here on kana, because there will be a drill where we're going to be looking at this, is that the word kana can be used. It changes any present tense sentence to the past tense. Okay? The sentences that I gave you in the last, where are they? Whoops. The sentences I gave you in the last two slides, these were examples of sentences with just nouns. You can also use it for verbs. Okay? And if you use it for a verb, most of the time, let me see if I can, there we go. If you use it for a verb, what it can do for the meaning is it can change the meaning to used to. It can give the meaning of I was doing something, or they were doing something, or they used to do something. It just depends on context. You just have to look at the time frame of that, the meaning of that sentence. So I have a few examples here for you. والدتي كانت أستاذة. My mom كانت was. She was أستاذة, a teacher. والدتي كانت أستاذة. She was a teacher. كنت أسكن في نيويورك. You could say كنت أسكن, now it's with a verb here, meaning I was living, or it could mean I used to live. It just depends on context. كنت أسكن في New York. But what's important, notice كنت has a to at the end, it's past tense, and it's conjugated for أنا. And the verb أسكن is also conjugated for أنا. Both of those verbs have to be conjugated for أنا because I'm talking about myself. كنت أسكن في نيويورك. Okay. قبل الصف, I'm just moving down here. قبل الصف, before class, الطالب كان يدرس. So notice كان is the masculine form هو, and يدرس is the masculine form with the ya of present tense. He studies. قبل الصف الطالب كان يدرس في المكتبة. So before class, the student was studying. So kind of works like the auxiliary verb was or were in English. قبل الصف الطالب كان يدرس. He was studying في المكتبة. In this sentence, you obviously know that it's not going to be used to because we're saying before class. Before class, he used to study? No, before class, he was studying. Okay, and the last one. كنت في البيت. I was at home. Okay. Now, you could use it, of course, as used to. Let's say if I said في الطفولة, in childhood, or في طفولتي, in my childhood, كنت أشرب شوربة الخضار. In my childhood, instead of saying I was drinking or I was having soup, vegetable soup, I would say I used to drink vegetable soup. Right? So it's just the context of the sentence is what's going to help you figure out whether it means used to or was or were. Okay? But this is just to let you know that you can use kana with a sentence that has a verb or with a sentence that doesn't have a verb. But if you use it with a sentence that has a verb, like in these two examples, then make sure that the verb that's in present tense, it's going to be kana, the past tense, plus the present tense verb. Kana is making that present tense verb become past tense. Okay? If you're going to do that, make sure that both of those verbs match for the same person. So in this, it's ana, so both are for ana. In this, we're talking about huwa, he, so both match for he. Okay? So now we're going to have a couple of assignments, and then we'll have the following video on going over all of the new verbs and the conjugations and practicing with them.